All right, welcome to episode 2 of Crossfire with Harry Campbell and Sergio Avedian. So I think it's been a little while since our last episode. I think Sergio might have got scared off after the first one. He didn't want to. We're back, and I think still
Yeah.
trying to figure out the right cadence. But it seems like the first episode was popular, so I think I saw at least 5 or 6 people in the comments that agreed with me. So that's all I need to keep going. So if you're ready, Sergio, what do you think? You ready to get going again?
I'm absolutely ready, and I'm glad you got the five. Let's go for 10 today out of 700.
Yeah, I didn't list that denominator, but I have a feeling, by the end of Crossfire, maybe after a few episodes, I think I'll be able to continue to win more and more people over to my side.
I
But I hope so too. And yeah, let's kick it off. Enough chit chat. Today we've got a few cool topics. I think you and I, probably I feel like we come up with a lot of this stuff on Twitter. And then, so we're going to do 3 topics today. And then we're also going to do a bonus topic for members. So we're going to talk about the new Seattle minimum wage for delivery drivers and whether or not that is too high. So that's our bonus topic. If you're a member, thank you for your support. And then the 3 topics we're going to dig into today: driving rideshare versus flipping burgers. Okay. Should drivers cherry pick or take all trips? That's topic number 2. And then number 3 is rideshare a charity? Should drivers be driving for free? So obviously seems like the answer is no, but we'll see what we're going to argue about there. So Sergio, let's start with rideshare versus flipping burgers. Now, I think this one came about because of a tweet, and I can't remember, was it you or I that tweeted it?
Yeah, I did. I tweeted it, and you called this the dumbest thing I've said. And I was
Okay, so
like,
here's
and
the
I responded to you just crossfire.
Here's the
I
quote.
was
I said, "This is the dumbest thing you've said since our last crossfire.
like,
Driving rideshare is 10 times better than flipping burgers if
10
the pay
times.
is comparable. There's no boss. There's a flexible schedule. You work as much or as little as you want. Cash out
Mm.
instantly. Drive around the city of your own car. Did I miss anything? Not even close enough. You're sort of taking the side here that you would rather flip burgers. We're not talking about In and Out. We're talking about flipping burgers, Wendy's, Carl's Jr., whatever it
Anywhere.
might be, then drive rideshare. So explain yourself.
Yeah, well, I responded to your tweet by saying no boss equals algorithm. On the second one, you said work as many hours as you want. I get that part. That's something to do with, I guess, the flexibility and the freedom part of it. But I can work part-time. All the things you said didn't make any sense to me for the fact that I take everything in life risk to reward. Okay.
Okay.
The risk of flipping burgers versus risk driving people around is immensely different, obviously. Okay. And I tested it again yesterday. I went out and did 14 Lyft trips. I grossed a whole $149 in 6 or 8 online hours, which is puts me right about 17 before expenses. And I'm going like $7 an hour expenses. I'm at 10. I can go flip it and make 20 with no risk. So what say you about that? I mean, look, the money versus the commensurate to risk is not there at this point. Was it there 2 years ago?
All right. Well,
Absolutely.
let's start with the risk. What are you basing that data on? That being a driver is riskier than driving for Uber? I'm not disagreeing with you yet, but I mean, when I go on
Okay.
Instagram or TikTok, obviously there's all these viral videos of,
Yeah.
people attacking Uber drivers, but I also see a lot of viral videos of customers attacking people working at McDonald's and working, at Burger King and, getting shakes thrown in their face, right? And so,
Yeah.
obviously I've driven before. I know that there are times where you can feel very unsafe, right? Where you're driving, you're picking someone up who has a fake name in the 2 a.m. in an alley, and you feel unsafe. But I guess
Well,
what's
the
your data
risks of
there?
driving, just the risks of driving. Forget being attacked, carjacked, stabbed, whatever that's going on these
Hmm.
days. That's societal problem. I'm not sure even the attacks
Okay,
on
so there's
McDonald's
there's
employees is a
I guess that was
societal
my
problem.
first point. There's societal problems, right, with like working in retail, having to deal with homeless people, you know what I mean? Like I think if
Yeah.
anything, Uber and Lyft are kind of safer on that front, right? Because most of the people getting
No.
into your car have an app, they have a credit card tied to it, right? No random
Is
person
that
can just get into
is
your
that is
car
that
like if you work at 7-Eleven.
okay? But is that why delivery and rideshare driving has been it is actually we actually did a segment on Show Me the Money a couple of weeks ago. They listed all the most dangerous jobs on the planet. Delivery and rideshare driving was number 5, above cops and firefighters. And it was done by
Who's
Forbes, and it was
they?
done by October 2023. So it's not like a 10-year-old stat. So look,
Well,
inherently
I mean, what's
driving.
the send me the article. What's the stat, right? Like typically the Bureau of Labor
The first one
Statistics
was the
said
people
that.
in Alaska, doing the
Well, I
crab
know, but
fishing.
what are they basing that data on? Is my point, right? I don't just
Oh,
trust some list on that I see
well,
on Forbes. It could be,
you're driving
what's the data
5,000
based
miles a
on, right?
month.
Like,
I mean, look, if you're driving 5,000 miles a month for a full timer or a couple thousand a month as a part
mm-mm.
timer, that's double what an average American drives. Okay.
Yeah.
So the chances of you getting in a fender bender or a serious crash, be it your fault or somebody else's fault, was a lot higher than standing somewhere and flipping burgers. That's the risk to reward that
Got it.
I'm looking at.
That I agree. That is fair, right? The risk of getting into an accident. I mean, there's 40,000 people die every single year driving on the roads, which I think is like it's literally like one of the most risky activities people can do is driving. So I think that's fair. Getting into a car and then you're doing, 2 to 4x the amount of miles, right, on your vehicle, right? So that part is safe. Obviously, you can control some of that, right, by being a safe driver and sort of what do they call it, defensive driving, right? You can't control everything, right? If someone speeds a red light and you don't see them, but yeah, so I guess there are some things that you would not experience necessarily. I guess to me, the argument is more, and I'll be honest, I've worked a lot of service and retail jobs, over the years. Like I used to be in the Santa Monica Mall in high school, asking people to take surveys for like $3 a survey. I did the volleyball team's laundry. Like I've done a lot of shit jobs in my life. I've actually never flipped burgers though. So to be fair, but I can imagine because I've worked in very similar types of jobs, right? And obviously we know that people love gig economy. They love driving Uber and Lyft because there is no boss, right? You can work as
There's
much
a
or as
boss.
little as you want. So I guess to me, what's your threshold, right? If you could make, let's say, $20 an hour after expenses driving Uber and Lyft, and you could also get that flipping burgers, right? Like, what would you take in that scenario if it was the
Definitely
same pay?
flipping burgers. 20 after expenses,
Really?
definitely still. If it's equal, look, if it's to me,
I mean,
forget
Sergio,
flip.
I'll
I
be
mean, if it's
honest. As you're my employee and I'm your boss, you never listen to me. You never come in. You never do what you say. You think you could do that flipping burgers? You have to be there at 8 a.m. You have to be there till 5 p.m. You have to work holidays. You have to work the busy times, the busy nights.
well,
Like that seems horrible.
well, it could be horrible. You're gonna smell worse probably
You're gonna
if
smell
you
like
flip
shit when you come
burgers.
home. You're probably never
But
gonna be able to eat a burger for the rest of your
yeah,
life.
I am just looking at the overall risk reward and overall compensation that I'm getting for the job that I'm doing. I think, driving rideshare inherently obviously is risky we almost agreed on that, but I don't think $20 is enough after expenses to do rideshare any longer. I mean,
So
that's my
for
opinion. Now,
you,
the
yeah, no,
audience
I
will
don't think
decide.
honestly. I personally, I think most people kind of vote with their feet. I don't think most people like if they were given the choice. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear. Most people do, opt for Uber and Lyft over, kind of flipping burgers if the pay is the same, right? That's a big if, right? But I
Yeah.
guess tell me, right? What if let's say flipping burgers at McDonald's or Burger King
I
got you
think,
20 bucks an hour in
the
LA?
way,
What would
look,
you need to drive
okay,
Uber and Lyft after
the way I look at
expenses?
it to do rideshare in today's day and age, I have to be about 50% above my minimum wage in my city. Okay.
Percent
So
above minimum wage.
In LA, that's 17. Let's say if I'm at 28 or so to 30, then yeah, I definitely would do rideshare even on a full-time basis. So look, I'm not saying, rideshare doesn't come with its own benefits. Obviously, the flexibility, turn the app on, go whenever, wherever, whatever, but that's debatable as well. You know, when I do go out and drive now, and I did it 2 weeks ago on Uber, 21 and a half online hour. Yesterday, literally, I was at 17 online hour, and I did not take everything either. So I was like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, I'm looking at it after 8 hours of driving
Well,
and 6 hours
I mean,
active.
the
I'm like,
online
no,
versus
this
active
is
is a
not good.
good point, right? Like you kind of want to be, obviously, you're kind of paid for being, kind of active, right? I guess you would say, right? Like you're not paid for that downtime. But, when you're at working at McDonald's, right? Like you're busy, right? And actually, I went into a McDonald's the other day and bought my kids some shakes. They don't even have cashiers anymore. So you're going to be like in the back working, cooking, like you're not even doing the easy job. You're literally going to be like cooking food, cleaning up shit, doing the bathroom, right? Like this is like a tough job, versus like
I
sitting in
said,
an
no,
AC, nice
I'm just
car.
looking at money. Look, Harry, I'm out there for me. I'm not out there for
Yeah,
Uber. I'm
I
not
think
out there
that
for
is,
Lyft.
yeah, I think
I'm not
you're
out there for the passenger
definitely,
either. All I'm out there is I'm trying to make the most amount of money the shortest period of time. At the moment, equal circumstances, $20 on one, $20 on the other one. Risks for me are not worth the rewards.
Okay,
And
that's fair. I
you know,
think for you personally, it sounds like not worth it. But what do you think for the average driver? What do you think? You think if it's 20, like what do you think they would say? Like the average driver?
I think they would agree with me, and then we're going to find out in the
Really?
comments. But look, your point is well
Okay, well
taken.
let's
16.5
ask the
million
viewers in
people.
the comments because this is all right. I'm definitely going to win this first topic. I think for
No,
sure,
you're
like if
not.
you have the option for like, I would 100% rather drive for like. I guess this is the question to the audience. Would you rather drive for Uber and Lyft if you could make $20 an hour after expenses, or go flip burgers and make $20 an hour after expenses? Which would you choose if the pay was the same?
We'll find out. But you know,
You think
the
the
thing is,
audience will say flipping burgers? I think for sure Uber
okay,
and
well,
Lyft,
we're going to
gig
find
economy.
out. We're going to find out. For the soccer mom, yeah, you know, for a maybe full-time driver, the answer may be different. However, you know,
Yeah,
everybody
that's
goes
fair. Well,
like, why are
maybe
six and
people
a
can
half million
comment
people
too.
doing it?
Yeah, maybe people can comment too and sort of explain why, right? Oh, I'm full time, or oh, I'm part time, or whatever it
Yeah,
might be. So yeah, because I think that definitely. All right. Well, I think we've hit this hammer on the head. Did we agree or disagree?
disagree. I rather flip burgers for 20 bucks. For the same money, I rather flip burgers with no risk.
So you'd rather flip burgers for no risk, and I think that I agree with you that there are, you're more likely to get in to an accident and have issues with that. But I think the other positives, like having worked in retail, like kind of the more having a boss, all those defined jobs, like I hate those, they suck, and I'd much rather, kind of work for
No,
myself, even if it
we're
is,
obviously look, we're obviously glamorizing the subject a little bit here. We're saying flip
yeah.
burgers because it's kind of catchy, but you know, you can compare that to standing around at Target, standing around at Walmart, you know, whatever it is. I'm just
I
saying
think what all those jobs have in
equal
common.
jobs.
Yeah, what all those jobs have in common though is that you've got to schedule shifts in advance. You typically, if you're a waiter at a restaurant, you got to work the busiest times. You have to work certain times and days, right? Like I'm not going to hire someone like Harry who, goes out and drives whenever the hell he feels like it, takes a month off, a year off, whatever it might be, right?
Same as
So,
rideshare. You know, same as rideshare. You gotta, I mean, look, yesterday I went out and when I drove, it wasn't the deadest hours. I drove from 10 a.m. to like 3 p.m.
yeah.
It wasn't like the worst day to work and worst hours to work. Still wasn't there. When it's not
Yeah,
there, it's
that's
not
true.
there.
There's definitely some challenges there too. Well, all right. So that was rideshare versus flipping burgers. Next topic. Should drivers cherry pick or take all the trips? So I
Yeah.
think this one is pretty straightforward. Yeah. What do you think, Sergio?
I am the president and chairman of the CPU, Cherry Pickers United, always have been. However, after doing some experimenting with Uber, going taking 20 in a row, and yesterday with Lyft, even with Lyft now, you know, I will talk a little bit
Yeah.
about strategy if we have time on this topic, but I am more for like I'm not going to call it anting, but I'm just going to say it straight up. When there's no cherries to pick, I can't pick cherries. If
Yeah.
I'm not shown cherries, I can't pick cherries. And if I'm going to keep getting out there and doing base trips, might as well take whatever they give me and then make my 22 bucks before expenses and go home because then I made something. I'm not
Yeah.
saying, you know, I made something. It's not profitable, definitely not profitable after expenses, but I made something, right? If I had a
Yeah.
goal of 200 bucks for the weekend, I can definitely do that because then I don't have to do the mental masturbation. Oh, do I do this? Do I take this? Do I pass on this? It doesn't need, you know, that part doesn't need any work except here's my 200. Did I get it in 10 hours? Did I get it in 4 hours? But
Yeah.
my thing now, my resolution has been now seriously, if there is no cherries to pick, you just accept it as is, make your money. You fall into a surge zone. Okay, sit tight, then cherry pick a couple times. But you need to have a hybrid strategy these days. So solid cherry picking when there's no cherries to pick doesn't work.
So I think, I mean, I've always been, I mean, literally the whole reason why I started my 10 years ago was basically with the idea that if you know what you're doing, if you know where to drive, if you know where to go, you can make more money than the average driver. Because frankly, I think the average driver is kind of stupid. They're kind of lazy, kind of like you said. I mean, again, right? Like driving can be an easy job. If you just sit there and take every job that, or, every job that the company send you, they tell you where to go, when to do it, who you pick up, where you drop off. You don't have to think. And so I think that that's the average, right? So if you want to be above average, you can't do what everyone else is doing. So I guess I would find it hard. I still think that there's a ton of variability, right? Every study we've seen and, that you featured on the channel, wherever it might be, it always says, top 5, 10% earners are earning 2x, 3x, right? And I think you just covered on Show Me the Money Club some data from Lyft where they kind of basically said the same thing, right? That like, hey, there's a ton of variability. And so I guess I don't know, I don't buy it. I think that there's always, maybe the cherries aren't that great for you personally because you've been doing it for so long and you remember that, oh, I used to get paid, during the pandemic, right? We were doing a bunch of posts of you making $60 an hour. And those days are long gone right now,
Yeah.
right? So maybe there's a little bit, you're a little bit jaded. I mean, again, right, there's 6, 7 million drivers out there driving. Obviously, they think the job is better than comparable options, and I still think that that variability exists. I don't see how it could have disappeared overnight. So I guess like I'll kind of defer to you a little bit since you're the one out there driving more, or driving these days, right? But I guess like I feel like there's always cherries to be picked. I don't know.
That's when my left hook comes into play here. I'm challenging you right here for a contest over a weekend or whenever you choose. Do you pick the days? We'll meet at the same spot. We go out, drive for 10 hours, and then we come back with the results. Both apps on. Let's see who's the
And I
winner.
get to cherry pick and you take all the rides, or we do whatever strategy we want.
Absolutely, whatever the way, any way you want to do it, as long as I can get your butt in the car driving and doing some trips, because I think we will break the internet if we do that.
Yeah, I think that could be a good. We'll see. Maybe if we get enough members joining the channel, and I can.
It will break the internet. I'm telling you. In fact, I'm so sure of that that we may not even do another Crossfire after that. But if you do beat me though, okay, by cherry picking, and that will be a miracle today. Now, if
Well,
things
I mean,
change,
I think
search comes back, all these good things happen, then there's a
yeah.
different story. I'm gonna do my hybrid strategy. I'm gonna keep taking it until I see surge, then I do what I need to do. I'm doing my hybrid, you're doing your cherry picking, I'll run laps around you in today's market. 4 years, 3 years
Well,
ago, nah, no question.
the
Cherry
one,
picking would.
not 3, 4 years ago. I mean, maybe 1 year ago, I think you were doing much better.
Yeah,
1, 2 years ago. I mean, the one thing I will agree with you, and I mean, this is one thing that I like about food delivery. It's pretty dummy proof. You literally just like go to the restaurant, pick up the food, and drop it off. It's busy during lunch, dinner, Sundays, holidays, and when it rains. It's like pretty simple and straightforward, right? Like it's hard to mess this job up, even though some people still do. But I think that same concept, right? Like again, if you have to like go out there and bust your butt and be working all these multiple apps and analyzing every trip, that's
yeah.
like a lot of work. Like I would rather sit back and be on Facebook, or I'd rather, sit back and just take every trip that comes to me, right? So I guess I do agree with you in that, like, hey, you better be getting a premium. If you're going to be doing all that work, you better be making 10% more, 20%, maybe 30%,
Minimum.
or wait, even more, right? I just feel like I hear so many complaints from drivers who are like, oh, it's oversaturated, or like, oh, I can't get any trips. And I'm like, how many hours did you work? A guy just shared his screenshot with me right now, and he was kind of complaining. And, I looked at his screenshots. He drove Monday, Tuesday, a couple hours, and this was Uber Eats. He did Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, didn't drive Friday, didn't drive Saturday. Like, I'm kind of
Yeah.
guessing if I look at the hours, like, hey, did you drive the busiest hours? Lunchtime, dinner time. Did you look at the weather? Like, do you check the weather? Like, I'm here in LA. I see that there's a storm coming in. Actually, it's raining right now. There's a huge storm coming into Northern California. So if I'm doing food delivery, I think like, hey, maybe I should chill this week, and then maybe I'll work double next week because there's going to be more rain, right? Like, I just think that there's a lot of simple strategies, principles that, it's easier just to bitch and complain and sort of say like, oh, I'm not
Definitely.
making any money right
On
now. Or, oh,
the
whenever I ask people for details, once in a while, people kind of prove me wrong and I'm happy to
yeah.
admit it. But I feel like it's more rare than it's like, oh, I'm not willing to get up early and do early morning,
Oh no.
airport runs and, get some of those good long trips, right? So I guess to
Yeah,
me, like if you've
no,
exhausted
that
all of those
on that
options,
one I
then
agree. On that one I agree with you. Food delivery is something completely different. But
all right.
as far as rideshare is concerned, to me, obviously, knowing your market is going to make a huge difference. But then me saying that a hybrid strategy is going to be applicable in today's market as it is, right? For the last, I don't know, year or so that I've seen, but there's no surge. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Even at bar hours, there's like minimal surge now. Okay. All I'm dealing with is gray clouds. I might as well just accept it. And then look, you can set your threshold. You don't have to go to the Tijuana border. You just kind of go, okay, decline a couple, but most of the time, take it, make your $200, go home. I don't
Yeah.
know how long it's going to take you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair if you also look at like again, right? This is sort of where I would step back one level, right? What time of year are we in right now? January, February, March. Isn't this the slowest time of the year for rideshare,
First quarter
right?
is, yeah.
Look at the macro market. Aren't there a ton of drivers right now?
Yeah.
I mean, companies are announcing layoffs like left and right. What if you've been laid off from a job? Like, what's the first thing you might do? Go, literally, a guy, one of my friends, kid's parent in my class, he's like, oh, I've got a little time in between jobs. Should I go do Uber or DoorDash in my few weeks, right? Like, there's a lot of competition out there right now for drivers, right? So I think looking back, right, like, hey, if you're someone, did you kind of stock up, save those acorns, when it was busy in November and December, right? And think about like, if you've been doing this, like it doesn't, I think you could read our book, you could do our course, you could just watch a few videos, like you're going to come across these principles that we talk about, right? I just don't like the people who sort of, like waited till the last minute, or, they wait till a Sunday evening to get their bonus. And they're like, oh, Lyft and Uber are screwing me trying to get this bonus Sunday at 9 p.m. at night. Screwed yourself. Now everyone's out there trying to get the bonus, late. You should have
Yeah.
gotten it
Yeah.
early, right?
No,
So I think to me,
there's still
the
things you can do,
strategy
okay?
part.
But every time I go out now, all right, and I almost like I can't prove it at the moment, but I'll get there shortly. Is that, we have something, we're in California, so we have Proposition 22 in California. And I'm pretty sure the algo has lowered every single offer that I get on base, okay, without incentives. On base, I'm at like $20 at that minimum guarantee that they're offering, plus the mileage. I'm at 22, 23. And that's where all the offers are getting. Like yesterday, I got all these offers, okay, on Lyft. All right. So I look at it, half hour, $10. I'm like, that's 20 an active hour if I got another one of those right at the end of the other trip, right? So I'm going like, okay, if that's what it is, now I might as well take the 10, because if I pass on the 10, I ain't going to get the same trip at 12. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if I do fall into a surge, if I, see it, then okay, then I can cherry pick it a little bit here and there. But, this is the norm now. This is,
Yeah.
if the
Well,
adjustment needs to be made, this is the
yeah,
adjustment that
I
needs.
think that's what's key, right? Like if you kind of understand, like if you're doing everything that you can, you understand the numbers and your earnings and your expenses and the market and all that, and you're still not hitting the numbers, and you're kind of coming to me and telling me that, hey, there's no cherries, then it's like, all right, well, in that case, I believe, if you kind of exhausted all of your options, then,
Yeah.
hey, it is what it is. And, if you ask me, I would say like, you should probably go find something else to do then, go find a different
Yeah.
job, right? Like if you've kind
That
of
goes back to the
exhausted
first
all of
topic.
those
Go flip
options.
burgers. There you go. But
Well, yeah, I mean,
so we're gonna, okay, audience, I know you're gonna watch this by the thousands. In the comments, leave us when we should do this contest between me and Harry. Now he's got a Tesla Model Y, he's got an advantage, but I'm gonna make sure he turns off all his Uber Green, all the high-end stuff that he's gonna do on Lyft as well. We're just gonna do X standard comfort. That's all we're gonna do.
X standard
And
comfort.
he's gonna go cherry pick.
Well,
I'm gonna go Ant.
and I think the equalizer is I have to stop the charge. I'll start with a full tank,
Not my
but
problem.
I will have to stop. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's kind of, I'm gonna have a
Yeah.
nicer car than you with the Model Y. I think passengers,
Yeah.
well, some passengers like it. It's a little much there in the back seat, but
If
then
they can
when I
open
have
the
to stop the
door.
charge, well, yeah, when I have to stop the charge, that'll be your equalizer for the better tips
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get,
yeah.
since
Oh, well, that's under
people
the
like me
assumption that
more.
you're ahead already. So it's
All
like,
right, so
uh,
last topic. Is rideshare a charity? Should drivers drive for free? So I think this topic is really Uber and Lyft, their mileage and time estimates. Obviously, they send you an upfront fare, and then there's a mileage and a time, and they're sort of telling you. So what is kind of set in stone is how much you're going to be getting paid, where you have to pick up, where you have to drop off. So those three things are set in stone. You know that information, whether it's a scheduled trip or in a ride in your market. Not every market has that, but I think like 95% of markets now have that. But the actual estimate, right? They might say it's 25 minutes and 14 miles. You might go out and do the trip, 30 minutes, 17 miles, and you're like, what the hell, right? So what happened when you were
yeah.
driving? Why do we want to cover this topic?
We want to cover this topic because what's happening now, since upfront fares, okay? Now, both companies came up with the explanation of upfront fares, which is very clear, and I love upfront fares. If anybody doesn't like upfront fares, you guys got to go flip burgers. So here's the deal. Upfront fares comes with something that we wanted for 10 years. Obviously, we know the destination of the passenger now. You see it up front. Okay, good. But also comes with this take it or leave it price. And
Yeah.
when they did introduce it, Uber's language was, if a trip lasts a lot longer, this is exactly their language. You can go check it, Harry.
Yep.
And on Lyft, it was significantly longer. Now, Until today, even I asked this to Risher, like on my interview, he didn't say anything about it either. So what is the explanation of a lot longer and significantly longer? Because to me, I personally, before upfront fares, did not drive 1/10 of a mile and 1 minute
Yeah.
on the house. I didn't because we had a rate
Well, but they
card,
used to
just
pay
like a
per
cab
mile
meter.
and per minute, right? They used to pay per mile and per minute, right?
Yeah,
So,
rate card. Right.
well, and I
So
mean, I think we
now,
did a good.
now I'm driving a lot of minutes and a lot of
Mhm.
miles for free. This is not even on a passenger that changes destination. I'm just talking upfront comes in. I look at the contract. I look at it as a contract. 10
Mhm.
minutes, 10 minutes, $5. Okay, it's good. I'll take it. Now, when that trip goes 12 and I still get five, that's
Yeah.
driving as a charity. I'm not
Well, I
doing it. I'm
guess
not going to do it. What should I do? Kick the passenger out at the 10-minute mark?
yeah, I know there's a lot of edge cases, so you do a good job covering those on Show Me the Money Club. We're kind of focusing right now on the, 10 miles or what'd you say, 10 minutes and $5, right? Like you still
Yeah.
get $5 every time. We're in agreement there,
Yeah.
but they might say it's going to be 10 miles or 10 minutes, and then it might be 12 miles or it might be 12 minutes, right? And that's the part that you're pissed about and you don't like.
No, I don't want, I want, okay, look,
I guess what I would say is
I want to get
I mean,
compensated for the work that I'm doing.
what's most important though? The most important thing is understanding how much you're going to get paid, right? Like, I feel like drivers, we kind of argued about this on the first episode with the take rate, right? Like, drivers get so caught up in, what the companies are taking. Like, I think it's much more transparent this way. Like, the companies literally say, hey, here's a ride. We're going to pay you $25 for this ride. Here's the where you pick them up, here's the destination. Like, all the information. They're kind of, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say they're being nice, but they are now giving you an estimate of the mileage and the time that that trip is going to take. And yeah, shocker, they tend to underestimate it a little bit. I think you just went out and did some rides, but like, what's
I
the
did not.
important part? The thing I really want to know is how much I'm going to get paid, right? Where I'm picking them up, and then where I'm going. I mean, we've done a lot of videos in the past. It was like, hey, when it's really busy, you don't want to be taking a 7 minute ETA pickup, right? You want to go for like a 2 minute, a 3 minute, a 4 minute.
Sure.
Like, you might get one that's seven, ignore that one, wait for the 30 seconds for the next one that's closer. Now you're minimizing that period two time, right? Which increases your kind of period three, utilization, right? And increases your earnings, right? So I guess to me, like, that's the most important thing. Like, okay, I guess I agree with you. It's a little
I look,
shady.
I am not, look, I have seen 1,000 screenshots about this, trips going over by 15, 20 minutes at a time. In
Yeah.
fact, I got one today. The driver did not get adjusted as far as the extra 15 minutes. I mean, that's 15 minutes I will never get back, and I didn't get compensated. On the other hand, though, they've set the algos in a way that if a trip goes a little bit shorter, maybe a few minutes shorter or a mile shorter, boom, you get a 30% haircut, 20% haircut. Look, if you
Yeah.
can do that, do the other way as well. And I'm not expecting to get paid the same amount they're cutting, by the way. All I'm saying is when I do trips and your estimate sucks, you should pay me for the extra work that I'm doing. I'm not gonna work for free. I'm not, this is not charity, this is not public service. I'm not doing it.
Well, I mean, I
And
guess if
and at
I'm the
some point,
company's,
Harry, at some point, like if a trip is in LA, especially with traffic, we know shit happens, and a
yeah.
trip 3 miles could be like half hour. And I'm like, if you send me a 20-minute estimate for 3 miles for $10, and I took it because my hourly was at 30, but now I'm at 30 minutes, and the passenger's still moaning and huffing and puffing in the back seat because there's traffic, you need to pay me for that. If not, I will kick the passenger out at the 20-minute mark. This is what you paid for, sir. Out. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, I'm sure they would love that.
Oh,
So, I mean, I guess what I would say is that, like, okay, if I'm the companies, all right, fine, I won't give you an estimate. I'm just going to tell you how much money you make and where you're picking them up and where you're dropping them off. Are you happy now?
no, that doesn't
Figure
come
it
with
out on your
upfront
own.
fares. That doesn't come with
Because all you
upfront
do is
fares.
complain to
Upfront
me
fares is
about how my
destination,
estimates are
time, and
off.
distance.
No, but I'm saying if you're a driver, like, all you're doing is complaining to me about the estimates. Like, if you're a savvy driver, okay, yeah, like Lyft shaves like 5-10% off of these estimates, right? Like, if you pick up a trip in rush hour, right? Like, I don't I think it's pretty rare that it's like grossly out of whack, right? That, like, hey, the trip is, they say it's going to be 20 minutes and it's 60. Well, you just told me that you went out and drove. What were the differences? Didn't you calculate, from, you did what, 10 or 20
Well, that
rides? What'd you calculate?
we're saving that for tomorrow, but then this will run after the show, so I can
All
talk
right.
about it. Is I did 14 trips.
Okay.
I drove 22 minutes extra on 14 trips. The worst one being 9 minutes against me. The trip came in at 41-minute estimate. It lasted 50. Okay.
Okay.
And I
I
got
mean, that's
paid a whole
20%.
14 bucks for that. No adjustment. Okay. And the worst mileage differential was two and a half extra miles. In fact, I I I went to the black hole that is Lyft support
Hmm.
and hit my head against the wall for 2 hours. To get my adjustment. They go, nope, there's no adjustment. We paid you fairly. So overall, I drove an extra 22 minutes, an extra 5.5 miles on the house. Not gonna
There
do
were
it.
some
I want to
trips
do
though
it.
where they overestimated, right? Out
Yes,
of the
there
14.
were trips. There were the worst. Okay, the worst
But
one that
just
went
like
over was nine
how many
minutes, and the
under
one
and
that
how
went
many
under
over?
was 4 minutes.
Okay. Right. So I mean some of the trips they overestimated, more of the trips though they underestimated, right? It was like,
Yes,
in that
overall,
5 to 10%.
I lost 22 minutes of my life without getting paid
So maybe like
on
5 to
five and a
10%
half miles.
total minutes, total miles, right? So it's not, I don't know, I wouldn't say that this is like five. I think it's a little shady, to be honest. I agree with you. Like, hey,
Okay.
over 100 or 1,000 rides, it should be pretty much on the dot, right? And if not, I think it's almost better to overestimate a little, right? It's a little
Yeah.
messed up to be
Yeah.
underestimating consistently, but also it's
But
only
if
five
you
to ten
let, but
percent.
if
It's
you
not,
take Harry, if you take this to a full-time driver doing 150 trips a week, okay? I did 14. So multiply that times 10, 22 minutes, let's say on average, times 10 is 220 minutes. That's 4 hours of my
yeah, but I
life.
mean, okay, so let's say they weren't, but these are estimates, right? So let's say they weren't giving you any of these estimates, right? And you just had the upfront fare and you had the pickup and the destination. All the trips you're being sent are the exact same, right? So if anything, I'm kind of learning, hey, if I'm Uber or Lyft, maybe I shouldn't be sending these estimates, right? Because they're kind of complaining, right? That like, hey, these estimates are off, or, like I don't know that it adds. I mean, I guess it adds some value to drivers, but then they kind of go and
Well, it does
underestimate
add
it,
a
right?
lot
I
of
think to
value because
me,
it does a lot of value because I don't in LA, like in other places, a lot of people drive for like buck a mile. I'm like, I'm not sure
yeah,
where this buck a mile came from. I'm trying to do $3 a mile. What's buck a
yeah.
mile?
I guess so.
Useless.
Look,
But anyway, but what I'm trying to look at in LA now, I try to look at, okay, if a trip comes in, estimates 20 minutes, paying me $10, extrapolate active hour, $30 an active hour, take it. I got it. That's the way I'm going in, right?
mhm.
But then if the trip goes another 5 minutes, now I just cut that 30 to 25. And now I'm screwed. I'm now
Well,
I'm in a catch-up mode all
but
day
now
long.
you
I'm
know,
just
right?
saying,
Now like every single
just
person
pay me.
watching, every
I have a
single
great
person watching
idea. I
this.
have Uber Lyft. I have a
Let me
great
talk.
idea for you. I have a great idea
Oh,
for
you
Uber
can't get
and
on.
okay, here we go. Okay, you know what? How about we do this? Just like I did yesterday on Sunday, just like they're doing the new Hocus Pocus 70-30 split
Yeah,
with Lyft or guarantee, whatever that is. How about this? They figure out, just like I did, all the overs, all the unders, mileage, and time, and give
yeah,
me a top off at the end of the week. Give me money at the end of the week. If I'm under, you know, uh, take
yeah. I
some
think that
money
might
away.
be
If I'm
yeah. I
over,
like
give me
that
money.
idea.
How about that?
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, because it kind of holds the companies accountable, right? If they're giving these, I guess to me, it's like, hey, if they're going to give these estimates, they should be right, right?
I
So,
hope so.
in that sense, I agree with you. I guess to me though, like, okay, yeah, okay, so we agree that parts of this are not great, but if I'm a savvy driver, like now, literally every single person that just watched this segment, they should now know, hey, these guys underestimate by 5 to 10%, overestimate, underestimate, whatever, by 5 to 10%. So when you do that calculation in your head, put a 5 to 10% buffer because that's about what it's going to be. And then,
Right.
if you do have an issue, like we all know, I don't know, I feel like this has come up a lot of times. Like everybody knows it's not worth it to reach out to Uber and Lyft support for a buck or two, right? Or a small amount. Like let Sergio do it, figure it out, waste 2 hours of his
Yeah,
time and my time,
exactly.
and then right? Like there's a certain threshold or, figure out like, hey, if you can send a quick message and then get it, great. If not, on to the next thing, or next time you need to
Well,
go into the hub, right? That's
yes,
when you bring it up.
everybody lost yesterday. 2 hours later, banging my head into the black hole. Nothing happened. In those 2 hours, I could be doing trips. You know what I mean? Lyft
Well, now
lost,
that
I
but
lost.
everyone
Just
who's
give me
just
the
watched this
goddamn two
segment,
bucks, Lyft. That's
they
it.
know. But that's what I'm saying. Like I know it sucks, right, to be kind of shafted by the companies, but like also,
Bullshit.
again, you're a business owner. Sometimes you're going to have, crappy customers or crappy boss or whatever it might be, and you kind of know like, hey, I'm going to get screwed here and there. Even though I don't know, I don't even know that I really that this is being screwed because it's sort of like they still tell you the amount, the pickup, and the drop off. If they didn't give you the estimate of mileage and time, would you still take the trip? Yes.
Yeah. Well, see, when you get out there and drive, we do our contest, you're going to figure all this out because it's going to be all new to you. And you're going to go, F this. Well,
Yeah, I
forget
haven't
it.
driven in a while, but I mean, the principles are all the same about driving. That's sort of my
We're
point.
going to
I mean,
find
in my
out.
book, in my course, we always talk about the principles, right? Like the principles
Yeah.
of these things are never going to change, right? The tension between drivers, companies, and right. Like, I would actually be surprised if Uber and Lyft, kind of, had at certain estimates and then they were overestimating, right? Because they care more about passengers, right? So they kind of want
Yeah.
that estimate to be as friendly to the passengers as possible. So, like, I guess I would say it's like that's kind of what I would expect.
Yeah, but we kind of agree on this kind of, but I just
I don't
want,
know.
I don't want to drive for free. I don't, it's not a charity. This is not, public
Yeah,
service. It's my private car. On those 5 miles, an extra 22 minutes, I burn gas. Okay. It's not, my car don't run on, air. So I need to get paid. I don't want to drive for free, period.
yeah.
And
All
just
right.
like just like they cut my upfront fare, you slash it in some cases if the trip goes shorter. Do the same when it goes longer. That's all I'm
Yeah.
asking. Fairness, transparency. That's it.
All right. Well, speaking of fairness, we've got one last bonus topic. So if you are a member, then you'll be able to hop over to your member tab on YouTube and you'll be able to see us discuss the Seattle minimum wage for delivery drivers and whether
Mm.
or not it's too high. So I think that's a good, juicy topic to end on. And we appreciate everyone's support. If you're not a member, obviously you can catch
Be a
Sergio
member,
and
please.
Chris on the Show Me the Money Club every single Tuesday. Definitely, we left a few call to actions down below if you want to leave a comment, chime in, and hopefully this time I'll be able to get more than 7 people who kind of agreed with me and were on my
We have
side.
ideas. We have ideas on that. Look, man, we really do great work. And come in hanging out with us for an extra episode. Show me the money for an hour. Come on, man. Come on now.
No
Man.
brainer.